Good morning, Second Baptist, or at least what individuals will be tuning into this one. So I pull up the Sunday school lesson here. I hope y'all are having a good morning. So today we're going to be looking in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, specifically verses 12 through 20. And we're going to be talking about the idea of doing our part, working together as church members and as individuals that are unified by the same goal. But to begin, I'm going to actually start with a bit of an illustration, and I want you to kind of put yourself in the story as I talk about it. So the year is 1683. The Ottoman Empire is at the gates of Vienna after being pushed back by a valiant Viennese stand. You, the Viennese, know that you cannot hold out against another charge, and you prepare to give everything you've got against the enemy. Because as was custom of the day, you knew you couldn't expect mercy from the enemy who is at your gates. As you line the walls, preparing your muskets and drinking what water or edible liquid you can find to hydrate yourselves, you hear a yell to your northwest where a relief army had finally arrived. It seems like you're saved. You hear fighting, very intense fighting, coming from the northwest, several sounds of musket shots and yells and close quarters clashing. And you think, oh, we should be good at this point. We should be good. Hey, Miss Rachel. Hey, Miss Teresa. And so as you sit there, you're watching, but you see the Ottomans start to come back. And you realize that the Germans weren't able to completely destroy the enemy and that the enemy was still there and was going to take you out. Your heart sank as you slowly realize that, well, the city is about to be taken. And you just steel yourselves for the final attack. Hey, Miss Gail. And as the final attack comes, they swarm over your positions, and that's the end of that. Except that's not quite how it ended. How it really ended, in real life, is from the northwest, there was a mountain range. And in this mountain range, there was a contingent of Polish cavalry, known as the Winged Hussars. And they actually charged down the mountains with sharpened lances and gleaming sabers to destroy the enemy and to rescue the city. They had an option to not engage. They had an option to not come. Because as the Germans had shown, the Ottomans were not going to give up easily. And in fact, many of them would actually perish in the fighting. Many of the Germans would actually perish in the fighting to the point where the Germans couldn't really hold on to the town that they had assaulted. So if the Hussars had chosen not to attack, that would have been the end of it. But the Hussars also knew that they needed to do their job in order to give a chance for this city to survive. That's what we want to talk about today. Everybody doing their part, everybody understanding that in order for us to be able to move forward as a church, in order to move forward as a group of Christians, that we need to make sure that we are all together and unified as we go. Hello, Ms. Green. Hello, Ms. Powell. And so we're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 12 through 20, if I remember correctly. And it says this. I'm reading from the NIV, by the way. You can follow along at home if you wish. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts of the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. Now, what Paul is saying here is that the church is unified, but that everybody has their own unique talents and job in the church, specifically different things that they're suited for, different things that they are called to do, and different aspects of worship that they themselves will be able to fulfill. Now, as in a church, it's kind of easy to see where some of these parts are. You have the pastor, you have greeters, you have deacons, you have the music minister, and on down the line. You've got all the different kind of jobs, Sunday school teacher, that kind of thing. But some jobs are kind of less obvious in the church. For example, just volunteering for different things, such as Upward, or volunteering for just a church workday. Things like that are also aspects of the job of the church and of the body to come together and to fulfill. Now, I hear a lot in the news and on social media and about just through all the different outlets that you can get, that there's this idea of coming together so we can beat the current threat of the coronavirus, which I know nobody really wants to hear about, but that's what they're saying is we all need to come together. We need to just stay at home, fight the coronavirus, and that's how we're going to beat this thing. We all need to unify and do that so we can return to normalcy. Well, my question is, if we're unified at this point to fight coronavirus, and if we're going to give it our best shot on that, why should we only be aspiring for normalcy when all this is said and done? Later on in the passage, Paul actually talks about, in verse 31, he says, now eagerly desire the greater gifts. And he speaks about having a drive and having a goal to continue to aspire to be better, to be, faster, stronger, insert your sports cliche here, that kind of thing. He wants us to continue to grow. He wants us to continue to do better as a body of believers. And he wants us to continue trying to serve God, but to help expand the body of believers in order to help integrate more people into the Christian faith. We want to reach more individuals. So when all of this returns to normal, as we say, why should we be satisfied? Why should we be satisfied with the idea of just being able to, I can go to my, favorite Mexican restaurant now. I can go to my, favorite fast food joint of my choice, and I don't have to go through the drive-through anymore. I can do, all these different things, which is all great. But why would we be satisfied with just that? If anything, this virus has shown us that we are not promised tomorrow, not necessarily even in the sense of death, but just in the sense that we aren't even promised to be able to get out of our homes at times. We've been stuck at home in self-isolation for a pretty long period of time. It's not been, ridiculously long, but it's been a pretty significant period of time. And all of the plans that we had set up for summertime stuff and all the plans that we may have had for vacations and things like that, they've had extreme revisions and changes. So we're not promised tomorrow, whether through the typical example of death or even just because we may be stuck at home because there's a virus outside that nobody saw coming. So why should we wait as soon as this is over to start trying to do better? Perhaps instead of setting the bar back at normalcy, we set the bar higher. The United States of America as a whole is starting to, statistically, turn from the church, specifically in the groups of young people, my age demographic in particular. Sorry for that. But my age demographic in particular is starting to turn away from the church. And having attended a university, a public university, for the past year and a half or so, Miss Peggy, Miss Lorraine. But having attended that university for the past year and a half or so, I can tell you that there is a massive need for outreach in that particular area. The number of times that I've seen students who may have been raised in Christian homes, who may have had Christian parents and Christian ideals when they were younger, who have been changed by professors' opinions or by their other classmates or, different ideas such as that, they need another voice. We have a pastor on campus who, he doesn't operate with the campus. I should clarify. He's not a Morehead State official, but he comes to the campus, and we have an area on campus called the Free Speech Zone, and it's underneath our bell tower. And he goes and he just starts to preach. Now, it begins as typical street preaching, just kind of yelling out different verses and talking about, ideas and things like that in the Christian faith. But then he starts to yell more angrily and gets up in students' faces and things like that, which kind of turns people off of him and usually ends in a screaming match and things of that nature. Obviously, that's not what we should be aspiring for. What I would love to see is if we could reach out to universities, if we could reach out to, different individuals after all this is said and done. And I am starting to ramble a little bit, but that's just the general point of this whole lesson, is that if we are going to be unified and it seems to me that we're already pretty well unified at this point. I mean, we've gotten through one of the largest threats that we've ever seen, or at least we're getting through it. It may not be done yet, but we're getting through it. So why not take that and move forward? Take what may have been intended to stop us and move forward in a stronger fashion. I think that's what Paul really calls us to do here in this passage in 1 Corinthians, but also just beyond Paul. I mean, Jesus Christ himself came and died for all of us to have an opportunity to go to heaven in order to be loved by God. And he died in one of the most, if not the most, painful ways possible, which that's above and beyond what any of us have to deal with here in the United States, where we still have the freedom of religion. We still have the freedom to peaceably assemble. We still have the freedom to do all these different things. So why not, when all this is over, we use that and we go further than we ever have before? In a sermon a couple of weeks back, there was a pastor that Brother David referenced talking about who believed that there was going to be revival when all this is said and done. And the fact of the matter is, there very well could be revival. I mean, there could be a perfect atmosphere for revival at that point when this is all done. But if we, the people of the church, don't go out and we don't go and we do the job that God calls us to do, whether it's as simple as simply working in the nursery, or if it's as, extreme as going door to door, which isn't really that extreme, but it's certainly something that you have to get out of your comfort zone to do. If whatever God calls us to do, if we don't do that, how on earth can we expect revival to come to a nation where the Christians in the nation are not actually doing work? Nothing comes easily. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few, and all bunches of stuff that references that kind of idea. So when all this is said and done, my goal, and this is to myself as much as anybody else, my goal is that in order to have the bar at normalcy, in order to not have the bar at normalcy, the goal is to not have it there, but instead to be higher, go higher, and be better, be stronger, and more loving, just in general. And I think that if we do that, and if we move forward, and we do our best to do as God has called us to do, then we will not only see maybe the church grow or the community come closer together, but we would also see potentially a revival hit the nation. Because all that God needs, as has been shown throughout history, you can look at the Great Awakening, you can look at the Second Great Awakening, you can look at Billy Sunday, you can look at Billy Graham, you can look at, insert your televangelist here. All of them have a major impact because they're fueled by prayer and by action of other Christians. It's not just them. Billy Graham was a brilliant evangelist. He was a brilliant man. But he couldn't have done everything that he did on his own. He needed other men and women of God to step forward and to do their part in order for him to even be able to reach the numbers of people that he reached. And even after he reaches all of those people, where are they going to go? Are they going to go to his church? No. They need to find a church in that community. And so we, as the people of God, Second Baptist Church, we can do more, I think, when coronavirus is all said and done. So I know I've rambled a little bit and it's a little bit early, but that's about all I've got. So I'll just leave you with the question of, what will you aim for once this is all said and done? Will you aim higher, or will you aim for just normalcy? Will you be the Viennese defenders, satisfied to just watch what's going on around you? Or will you be the hussars who arrived coming down the mountainside and ended up saving the day? Not to say we're all going to be military heroes, obviously, but we could certainly make an impact just in our daily lives and with the people who are all around us. So that's what I've got for this morning. Hope you all got something out of it, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And I hope to see you on the live stream, at least, with the sermon that will be given by Brother David at 10:15. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out in a word of prayer, and then I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. Thank you, God, for this day and for everything you have done for us. Please be with us as we go forward in all of these events that are transpiring around us, and as it feels like we don't know when this kind of thing is going to end. We hear individuals who are leaders saying that it's going to be over soon, and then other people saying it won't be over for a long period of time. And whichever one may be true, or if it's just somewhere in the middle, I know that you will be with us, and I know that you will take care of us. And please help us see what your mission is for us. Please help us be able to go forward and not just settle for what we have settled for in the past, but instead be willing to move forward and to move higher in what you call us to do, and to be more driven as a people, not just one church or any church in particular, but all churches in America and Christians across the world, that we be driven to do your will and to give it our all, more so than we gave it before. We know that we're not promised tomorrow, and we thank you for today. And and all of these things I ask in Christ Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all have a good rest of your Sunday. I'll see y'all later.